I'm Gab. He's not Jules. He's Rob Palmer. That's right. Coming in, filling in for Jules, who's away. It's gray and crappy skies over West London. But Rob, thanks for coming in. What a show we have today because there's so much going on. Real Madrid win, but don't exactly impress. Harry Kane scores a hat trick. Controversy. Some people say controversial. Winner for City against Wolves. Arsenal man sent off. They end up losing, but we're going to start at Anfield. Liverpool and Chelsea. Liverpool come out 2-1 winners. They're top of the table. I was struck by the fact that after the game, you had Arne Slot coming out and praising his team for how they played and whatnot. And you had Enzo Maresca coming out and saying that he was happy with the way Chelsea played because they took the game to them. They dominated possession, controlled the game, blah, blah, blah. Can both things be true?
I think so. I think it was a heavyweight fight. Maresca would probably be saying, let's have a rematch, shall we? Because we got beaten there, but we only got beaten on points and we had the chances. I had the chances later on, like most of the games that we're going to be talking about around Europe. It came down to the fine margins, didn't it? And it came down to some great performances as well. But I think it probably showed that Liverpool are about to be taken seriously. Man City didn't have a great weekend. Can't say that Liverpool cruised to it, but ultimately they just had that extra gear and they had the extra players for Arne Slot to look to on the bench to bring on and maybe change the pace of the game. And I think Liverpool is superb and top of the table. You don't get there by accident, do you?
I've made this point before about how I think Arne Slot, while they're, when they had to go and find a replacement for Jurgen Klopp, or a successor, I should say, because Jurgen Klopp, of course, can never be replaced. They opted for Slot where there's a lot of commonalities, but there are also some striking differences, not just in the formation, the way they set up, but in the way they play. And I almost think, even comparing it to Feyenoord, I almost think this ability that they have to play more in possession, to slow the game down, to then suddenly go fast when they need to, it's very different from Klopp, in my opinion, which seemed to be sort of, foot down the whole time.
Yeah, first time I saw them this season when I went to Anfield, it was ironically the only game that they lost this year, so it wasn't the best example.
They won't be inviting you back.
But I think what it's almost like driving a car in that, with Klopp, if you think about, you got your stick shift. With Klopp, they go from first gear to fourth and then maybe to fifth and then he crank it back down again. And with Arne Slot, it's almost like he's passing the driving test. He's going from first to second to third to fourth. And then occasionally he'll get to fifth and then occasionally, if they really need it, as they did this weekend, we've got a sixth gear that other people don't have, and they go into that, which is the difference. And then he works his way back down the gears. He has got the ability to put his foot down on there, but it's a more measured style of play. And I think the players are bought into it. They play in these nice little triangles, and it's like, he doesn't pick the same team every week. You don't know what Liverpool's best starting 11 is at the moment, but you know what his style is.
I think I do know what their best starting 11 is. Yes,
Would Curtis Jones be in it?
He may bring up the argument now. No, but it's a good way. Jones was phenomenal. Had a great game. I thought, again, you make a big call because when they took the pitch, they were second in the table because City had won, right? And still, he looked at Alexis McAllister, looked at Luis Diaz, looked at Darwin Nunez, and says, "All right, these guys, they just came over from South America and so on. I need to win this game, but I also need to think ahead because there's a ton of fixtures coming up. I'm going to put my faith in Curtis Jones." Presumably he'd seen things in training and whatnot. And he was fully vindicated.
Yeah, I guess he traded off those guys that come back from South America that he looks around the changer room and they've got a little bit of jet lag for a guy that's just had a baby this week and hardly slept, but when he has slept, he slept in the spare room. So those are the kind of things that the modern managers have to weigh up, Gav.
On the Chelsea end, all right, and this is why some Chelsea fans give me a hard time about this when I say that the squad is not well put together. And that's not on the manager. That's a legacy of what happened before. Manesca himself came out. He gave an interview with Sky Italia recently, and he said, "Look, all I can do is deal with the sporting part, deal with my actual squad." But they do look well behind where Slot already has Liverpool. Mm-hmm. And to me, that's down to the personnel. Again, no Enzo this time. At the back, Reece James came back. Didn't do great at all. Tosin also not great. Is he kind of paying the price for that?
I think the thing is, with Arne Slot, if you're comparing him to Slot's come into a room that is already decorated, and he's putting his own kind of little slant on things, and maybe moving the furniture around just a little bit here and there. But when you're looking at Maresca, he's coming in, and it's a complete kind of renovation, isn't it? He's had to sort out those players that are on the other pitch over there that he's had to sideline. He's had the looks at the likes of Reece, James that's come in as well. Tosin, I didn't think had a great. I think he should have been sent off, if I'm really honest, at the weekend as well. So yeah, I think it's a learning curve, and he's probably ahead of the curve from where he thinks he should be.
I think that's exactly it. I don't think Chelsea played badly, but it's just a
They had
reminder.
more possession, didn't they, as well?
At Anfield, but it's the Slot era. Times have changed. I want to go a little further with this team because I thought that was I can see why you do what you do. That was a perfect analogy about the guy who comes in to and just kind of freshens out an interior decorator. There was a brilliant interior decorator there before. He just freshens up some of the furniture and stuff, which is Slot with Klopp. Although he did change, I think as we said, he is changing the style of play.
Yeah.
But the personnel is there, the teamwork is there. You compare it to Chelsea, and I'm just going to go through this, right? You have a goalkeeper, at least the Chelsea 11 that played, right?
I'm glad you're going to mention this because, again, I think the average fan out there that are not Chelsea fans would not recognise a third of the Chelsea team. They'd have to get on the internet. They'd have to go, who's that? Who's that guy? Where did he come from? How long has he been around? It's a completely new look team.
The amount of turnover, right? You had a goalkeeper in Robert Sanchez, who I don't think is very good, but whatever, was in and out of the team last year.
The best of the 9 they've got.
Right, stop it, be kind. Many of those guys have left now. You have Reece James, who's obviously been there forever, but started, I think, 5 games all of last season, coming back from his umpteenth long injury. You have Malo Gusto playing at left back, even though he's really a right back. And yes, Ben Chilwell's in the back somewhere, but he's not in the squad, so we won't mention him. You have Tosin, completely new this year. You have Colwell, who, again, injured for a long stretch last season. In midfield, you have Caicedo, who was there last season. Fair enough. You have Lavia, who missed almost all of last season.
They could have been the Liverpool midfield, those two, couldn't they?
It could have been.
History,
yes. It's a parallel universe. You have Cole Palmer, no argument there. You have Nani Madueke, who I think has been really good. You have Jadon Sancho, just arrived at the end of the transfer window. And you have Nico, who I think is improving. Although, dude, we thought you turned the corner in getting stupid yellow cards to dissent, and now you got another one. I mean, this is a team that's kind of really thrown together. And we know the reasons for it. And they can say that they're long-term, but it's going to take a lot of time to get these pieces to fix. Whereas what I like about what Slot did, he's like, okay, I'm going to make some tweaks, but the back four is what it is. In midfield, he moved to 4-2-3-1. We know Alexis is McAllister. His big gamble, perhaps, or the big unknown was, can Ryan Gravenberch kind of play in that deeper 2 and provide the sort of passing that I kind of want from somebody in that position? And he wasn't great yesterday, but has been, I think, very good this season. Szoboszlai as a 10 is something we didn't see under Klopp, but we did see before. And then, the wingers and the center forward, that's the same bunch, and he's got his assortment that he can pick from. I mean, that is one lens through which to view these two clubs, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think Liverpool, if you look at the 11, the players that are there have done great things for the clubs that Liverpool have probably signed them from, or have had a couple of good seasons at Liverpool, or if they play for their national team as well, you could go back and you could look at the YouTube highlights of them, and they've all achieved, they've all done something in their career. But the Chelsea players that you mentioned there are all players, and you look at these owners that want to buy players that have got potential in them and put them on a long-term contract, and he could be good, he's going to be good, he's got something about him. But Chelsea, I think, are a team where every single player you've mentioned there has got something about them, but hasn't necessarily done it yet in their career. I mean, I saw a lot of Jackson when he was in Spain. If you thought he was going to be part of a team that should be, well, they're not in the top 5, but it should be a top 5 team in the English Premier League. I don't think he's a top 5 English striker, but the owners, the sporting directors, the people behind the scenes making the decisions at Chelsea are signing players like that have potential. And maybe that is their problem. There are not enough there that are proven. They've got a CV that they can throw on, on the managers. They say, look, I've done that. I've been here before. I've been in a cup final. I've won this. They'll show me your medals. Whereas I think Liverpool have that advantage.
This is kind of the age-old issue. You say it's a problem. I think Chelsea would say, if Baydad were here, he would say, no, this isn't the problem. This is our deck. This is our game plan. Like, we sign the best young players around, and we've heard it. We amortize it. They make less money because they're younger players, and then we move them around. And this is how we're going to build value over time and get the flexibility. Now, they've embarked on this project. I think I think they really embarked on the project, back in the January of when they signed Malagusto and David Fofana and all those guys. So it's 2 Januaries ago. Is it going to work? Jury's out. But it's interesting, though. I mean, I think it has to be given a chance to work, right? And that's why they have to be disciplined, even at the expense of perhaps not finishing top 4 for a year or two.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a work in progress, and it is progressing as well. They're not getting beaten. Maybe last year with an 11 like that, they would have got spanked by Liverpool at Anfield. Now they're running the game, and it came down to a chance at the end of the game that Chelsea could have scored, and marginal decisions as well. I just think the thing that Chelsea maybe need is 1 or 2 players who've played a little bit around Europe, that have been in that situation before. And the other thing,
exactly what they don't want. They don't want that kind
one
of...
or two. I mean, I think it's not
Thiago Silva.
Yeah.
The younger Thiago Silva.
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at Barcelona. I did the Barcelona. We'll talk about Spanish football later on. But you look at the Barcelona team. They're playing 2 17-year-olds in there. They've got a couple of 20-year-olds and a 21-year-old. But they also have Lewandowski at the top, Ter Stegen before he was injured as well. And they can look at these guys for leadership. Whereas I think if you look at Chelsea, there's not that disparity of ages and experience in the team. I'm not saying they're a bad team at the moment, but I think there just needs to be that kind of a bit of a spike when it comes to the ages and experience.
I genuinely don't know because I wasn't paying attention. But when Reece James obviously captained the side, he's a club captain.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know who the captain's armband went to when he came off. I'm going to assume maybe Colwill.
Well, that's the thing. You answer your own argument there. Who is there that you look to that goes, well, he's the guy that's got the next number of games, 150 games, 200 games in the Premier League, or Serie A, or the Bundesliga, or whatever.
It's funny too because a lot of these analytics types. There's an article that came out recently. They kind of have this rule of thumb about, which again is kind of a no-brainer, but like, you can sign really young players if they've played a lot of minutes because that shows that they're good and their manager wants them in the side, and you have enough data that you can judge them, which again is kind of a no-brainer. Yeah. I think it's 3,000 senior minutes is kind of the threshold where the data becomes more reliable. The curious thing is Nico Jackson had not played that amount of minutes. Mm-hmm. I think he's still developing. I think he is somebody who is an unmitigated success thus far in his development compared to where he was. And I've praised him for being able to grow in a tough situation with all the upheaval at Chelsea. A lot of the others, and obviously Cole Palmer hit the ground running and so on, Madueke is growing, but you still have serious question marks, and I think especially at the back, and that's something that he needs to work on. But I want to move it to Liverpool because we praised Curtis Jones. First off, the Jones on Robert Sanchez, where the penalty was given and then overturned. Are you okay with that?
Well, in a previous life, I was a professional goalkeeper, Gab. So
I want to get that. I want to get that perspective from you, and I'll be asking you more goalkeeping questions later.
Yeah, and I will always stick up for the goalkeepers. But I would say on that occasion, he did get a slice of the ball, and he touched the ball, Sanchez. But the other thing was, if you're talking about the penalty, the Sanchez penalty that wasn't, is that if you made a tackle like that, or any other player on the field made a tackle like that, the referee would immediately be giving a free kick or a penalty, wherever it is, and showing a yellow card because it wasn't a great tackle, but it was a goalkeeper's tackle. So
the argument being just because you get the ball doesn't mean you can't go through the opponent.
Yeah, exactly, and take him out with the upper thigh. So it was not a textbook tackle. They won't be teaching that at the FA headquarters at St George's Park or whatever.
I mean, I think as a goalkeeper, you have the advantage that you can throw yourself to the ground in a way that a forward can't do.
Yeah.
And so there's bound to be contact if he's coming with you at pace. And the question is, at what point does it become dangerous? The way Jones went over, I thought he was going to land on his head. I also wonder, had that been a striker, somebody a little cannier, might he said, "Oh, you want to come out?" He just would have just knocked the ball to one side, dragged his foot, and won the penalty that way. The way it unfolded, I'm with you. I think not the best form, but equally, he does get to the ball first. Jones could jump over him.
Again, it was a weekend of massive VAR decisions. And again, when you look at it in real time, at the speed of the game and the movement of the goalkeeper coming off his line and the way that Curtis Jones was going at the ball, it looked like a penalty, didn't it? But when you slow it down frame by frame by frame, you see that he just fractionally touched the ball.
All right, Curtis Jones had big game. I think he's a big value add for Liverpool. But we were talking about this off air before. He has a lot of options. This is a big squad. And it's obviously for a team that's competing both in Europe and domestically that's something that you need. I've made the point now that Chiesa on board as well brings a number of his, you've got 6 guys for 3 spots up front. In midfield, if we assume that the base midfield for now, at least, is McAllister, Szoboszlai, and Gravenberch, then beyond that, you've got Endo, you've got Jones, you'll have Elliott when he comes back. Yeah. So that's almost like a second team. At the back, maybe not quite as much depth, but you've got Kwanzaa and Gomez and Tsimikas and the right back who I'm blanking on. Connor Bradley. Yeah. That's like a second team there. Mm-hmm. Oh, and Kelleher.
Yeah.
I mean, a Liverpool second 11 on paper, pretty darn good. The dynamic of managing, because this is what, look, you've spent so many years talking to coaches, right? Mm-hmm. And you get some coaches who are like, no, I don't want such a big squad. I only want sort of, 14 or 15 players plus some kids, blah, blah, blah. And then you got others saying, I want 2 guys for every position. At Liverpool, you could arguably say there are 2 legit guys for every position. And by the way, listeners, go out and do this with other clubs, and you'll see that not many clubs have 2 legit guys for every position.
Absolutely. I mean, I was going to see a Liverpool game earlier in the season when they played, I think, Las Palmas at lunchtime, and was it Sevilla or Betis in the evening? And I was looking at the teams, and he picked 2 different 11s, and you couldn't tell which was the stronger of the 2 11s. If you speak to Liverpool fans, they'd say, do you know what, if we sold Trent Alexander-Arnold, we might actually stick for Connor Bradley. They've got 3 very good goalkeepers there. And I think you say that, and it's a great thing that Pep always says. He chooses from a smaller pool of players at Manchester City than anybody else. And I think when Slot came in, he will have said to them behind the scenes, I've actually got too many players here. If I'm doing 11 against 11 on the training ground at Kirkby, I'm going to have to leave 6 or 7 players on the sidelines. The likes of Tyler Morton, was it Downs who came in last year, Ben Doak, who played for Scotland, did brilliant for Scotland last year. They've sent him to Middlesbrough for a gap year up there. And I think those players that came in when Klopp had a really good spell in the spring last year, that came in from the youth team and were fast-tracked in, they were there. So, but yeah, I think he's got a bigger pool of players. But Jones is maybe a good guy to have around. He's probably the kind of player that if he did fall out with Liverpool, Chelsea would be interested in, because they're saying, well, he's not got that many games on.
I think he's too old for Chelsea.
Maybe just a little bit too old, maybe by 1 or 2 years. But he's the kind of player where they would go, do you know, there's value in him. And I think Jones would be getting a lot more minutes if he was at another Premier League club. And I think he would be a given. I know he got in the England squad and he had to pull out last week. But I think it'd be a given in the England squad if he was at another club.
Well, Slot seemed to play the same guys over and over again at the start of the year, and which makes sense for a new manager. Build that chemistry. Now we've seen more changes. We've seen, Tsimikas occasionally giving Robertson a breather. When you look at this midfield as a group, do you see Jones dislodging anybody realistically? Because I don't see him as a Gravenberch type. Do you?
No, I think Gravenberch is doing a remarkable job there, and he's been the find of the season for Liverpool and redefined the way they're going to play. I mean, they were looking at Zubimendi and they thought they were going to get him, and the fans were disappointed. As you say, Caicedo and the other guy who was playing in midfield for Chelsea, they desperately wanted those 2 years ago. Then they forgot Lavia. They forgot about those. They'd now forgotten about Zubimendi. He's going to go somewhere else. And all of a sudden, Gravenberch, he's not the anchor man who's crunching into tackles, but he holds his position there. I think he's the one player that's going to play week in, week out. The thing is, if they play Gravenberch and McAllister, there's not a lot of dynamism in the midfield. But if you have Harvey Elliott and you've got Curtis Jones and the game is at a certain pace, you can bring them on and it steps up a pace as well. And if the guys have been away on international duty, you've played in the Champions League, that's when he needs to re-energise the team.
And I think Slot is not quite Inzaghi level with program substitutions and stuff like that, and using his 5 subs. But he probably, I think, is a guy who generally makes best use of subs and has that ability to go and change games, especially we see it a lot with the forwards, but I think that bodes well. I think this could be a challenge keeping everybody balanced. And I'm wondering, I'm just going to throw this out there to the Liverpool fans, do not get angry. Is this a sign when you've got such a big squad that you're also doing this because it gives you leverage over Mohamed Salah and Virgil van Dijk and indeed Trent Alexander-Arnold, in the sense that all 3 obviously coming to the end of their contracts in June. Like I've said this, none of these players are, you must extend them at any cost. No, everybody has a price. You've got the smart people in charge upstairs, right? To who they brought back to go and decide what that number is. But I think this gives them a lot of leverage in the sense that none of these guys, at least in terms of bodies, familiarity, is necessarily irreplaceable. Obviously, you'll want to upgrade, but
yeah, and the thing is, that if they're doing well and you've got this really hungry group of players, the less of a dependence on Van Dijk. I mean, they're all playing well. Salah's playing well. Van Dijk's playing well. Trent Alexander-Arnold is Trent is at the peak of his powers. But if you're the guy negotiating with them, they'll say, well, look, okay, Trent, if you don't want to stay here, we'll put Connor in there because he does a good job. And the fans are recognising that as well. And Trent isn't playing 90 minutes week in, week out. Van Dijk, the signing there, I mean, I think they desperately need to sign a central defender, but he'll want to be the leader. And part of that group of players that are coming through and going, well, hold on, do I sign a 1 year and not be here in 2 years when they're doing this? I want to be here for 3 years. And maybe that will bring down his asking price as well. And Salah, I mean, he could go anywhere in the world, couldn't he? But again, he will look at this team and think, well, I want to be fighting for he's not a given Mo Salah in the team at the moment. No. He's absolutely earning his place. And I think he's taken his game up a level this year as well. And he's needed to with the competition for places there. So, yeah, I think it's a bargaining chip for the people behind the scenes at Liverpool. You want to be part of Liverpool, sign the contract. This is what the future is.
Yeah, I think we really have to tip their hat to them because I think from that part, they've played a blinder. All right, enough Liverpool. How about some quick hits instead? Barcelona do it again, a 5-1 victory over Sevilla and the return of Gavi after his long injury. Come on, there was a tear in your eye when Pedri came off and gave Gavi the captain's armband. How big is this? And how are the pieces going to fit now going forward?
Again, it's a little bit, we talked about Liverpool earlier on, that Barcelona now have a very strong, young, fit squad, and Gavi's going to have to work very hard to get his place in that team, despite being a recognised Spain international. It's interesting that the coach is saying when he does play, he doesn't know whether he's going to be a 6 or an 8, whether he's going to play the position that he used to play, just behind the strikers, buzzing around, or indeed, the way that Barcelona are playing these days, that he's going to be one of the holding midfield players. So his future is a little bit uncertain. His future is at Liverpool. He's at Barcelona.
Future's at Liverpool.
Oh my goodness, did I let that go then? His future is certainly at Barcelona, and the captain's armband might not be the first time that gets handed the captain's armband, but I think everybody choked up a little bit when they gave him that. 335 days out.
Yeah, incredible. Pedri scored a great goal. Lewandowski had another 2. But by the way, Rafinha playing the best football of his career, in my view.
Yeah, and he has been skippering the side, and he's a true leader of men as well at the moment for Barcelona. Lautaro Martinez scores the only goal as Inter gutted out to get a big 3 points at Roma. Gab, Inzaghi thinks he's one of the top 5 players in the world. Do we agree?
He says he thinks that. Whether he really thinks that, I don't know. Certainly, he is so important to Inter. He's a value add to Inter. Earlier this season, he wasn't scoring. It was left out some games. Didn't matter. He's so good, and he struck at the right time. I thought Inter did okay. They created several chances. Roma were really, really poor. I think the whole nonsense in the background with the Friedkins and the new coach and stuff not helping them. I don't like seeing Dybala play as a defensive midfielder. It doesn't seem to make much sense to me. But big 3 points for Inter.
Great goal, wasn't it?
Oh, a tremendous goal. William Saliba gets sent off after half an hour, and Arsenal fell to Bournemouth 2-0. Rob, it's their 3rd red card of the campaign, and it's still only in October.
It's almost like going back to the Wenger days when they had the worst kind of disciplinary record in the Premier League as well, isn't it?
But that's when they had Keown and Vieira and Petit, and it was the goon squad. I mean, not goon in a bad sense, goon in a good sense.
Yeah. If anything is going to stop them this season, it is their lack of discipline and maybe that little touch of arrogance. This wasn't a touch of arrogance. It's a professional foul. It was a reflex. I'm sure if he looked back in that split second of time, he wouldn't have pulled him back. But it must have been a red card because for once the manager didn't dispute it.
No, he didn't. But it was a stupid mental error caused by, not so much by Saliba, but by Trossard's foolish back pass. And, Bournemouth only scored with 20 minutes to go on a set piece. By the way, I don't want to hear more about the set piece genius coach, Brentford, all this other stuff.
Every club's got one.
Yeah, focus on defending too. So I don't know. I think it's really important how Arteta plays this because you can't let yourself get down over this. You should accept the fact you'll face Liverpool next weekend without Saliba, and that is a huge loss. But there's enough good things there, and you'll get back on track.
Absolutely, but they keep giving themselves a handicap, don't they? They keep getting players sent off, and then they maybe don't think a week ahead, and we're going to play without one of our key men against the top team in the English Premier League at the moment. Harry Kane has gone nearly 400 minutes without a goal, but he bagged a hat-trick Saturday against Stuttgart.
He did. He could have had even more. He missed a couple chances in the first half. I thought this was I was really looking forward to this game. I want to see what Stuttgart could do. Obviously, we've seen them in Europe do so well. Sebastian Hoeneß losing so many players over the summer, but weirdly, he has 6 German internationals. Admittedly, most of them not the fanciest kind. There's a bit of Mittelstadt in there, guys like that. In the first half, I thought Stuttgart did a good job of tying up Bayern. I thought Bayern were sloppy. They weren't helped by the fact that they lost Pavlovic early on, broken collarbone. I think he's going to be out 2-3 months. Palhinha comes in and kind of looked like a foreign object, certainly in the first half. Mm-hmm. Much better after the break. More so, I think, because of the individual quality marked by Kane, who opened the floodgates with that vicious shot from, was it like 5 yards outside the area? I think it'll be okay, but there's still a lot of work to do. And also, I don't know. I don't know. I need to see that much more of Serge Gnabry. I think it's time to give somebody else a chance over on that side of the pitch. And they missed Musiala as well. But hey, 3 points, top of the table. Move on. Rob, we're not done. We have more quick hits. Manchester United come from behind at the half to beat Brentford 2-1. Rob, was Ten Hag right in talking about lies, fairy tales, and noise when they've snapped their winless streak?
I don't know. He keeps coming back, doesn't he? The fact that they're down the order and they're not on the back page or the inside back page of the newspapers this weekend maybe suggests that he may have a slight point. When it comes to lies, I don't know. He probably thinks they're all lies about his future. Fairy tales, well, Manchester United is always about fairy tales of theatre and dreams and stuff like that. And noise. If you're the manager of Manchester United, you have to get used to the noise there. But they just edged it, just about did enough this weekend, didn't they?
Can I make a suggestion, though? I think, first of all, we should be talking about Marcus Rashford being more effective on the right. I thought that was a great move from him. Mm-hmm. We should be talking about Højlund's finish. We should be talking about Garnacho's goal. What strikes me, though, he kind of creates this rod for his own back. He got so angry when Matthijs de Ligt, when he potentially somehow hurt himself with that weird challenge that he did. He's bleeding from the top of his head, and twice the referee made him go off the pitch to get medicated. And then he wasn't there for the Brentford goal 5 minutes into first half injury time. And he got so angry because he was off the pitch being medicated. I mean, and he said it was but it was dried blood. Does this make any sense to you?
Not really. It's like saying you've got dried coffee, haven't you? If you put water into coffee, it makes it kind of coffee and the coffee spills all over you. And it always rains in Manchester. We know that. So if you've got dry blood on your head and you get a bit of perspiration, whatever, it's going to come down. Maybe this sums up. My family went to the stadium for the first time in a long time to Old Trafford last week, and they were getting wet from the stand, and this is a little bit like the stand situation. And they patched up his head. They didn't do a good enough job, and the blood kept seeping through again. And maybe when they made all of these cuts, they also laid off the cuts man or the cuts woman, whoever is behind these days.
When people get head injuries, you see them come back out, and they normally have bandages and stuff on their head. Yeah. With him, it looked like they stuck on a tiny. I don't know if Dr. Nick Riviera was filling in on the sidelines, but no, I would have a go at your medical staff who can't patch him up in such a way that where he doesn't start bleeding again from his head. I mean, it's as simple as that.
Exactly. You look stupid, don't you? You come out, and these days there's all kinds of colours and whatever, but you don't look as stupid as you do conceding a goal when the guy's on the touchline getting a little plaster on his head. Gab, Real Madrid switched to a back three against Celta de Vigo this weekend. Come away in the end with a 2-1 win, but you're going to tell me all is not well.
All is not well. This was not a good performance. Kylian Mbappe scored an absolute worldie and looked lively. That's good. Luka Modric came off the bench. Magical assist for the second. Great. But, you can't... Luka Modric literally now the oldest player in the history of Real Madrid. You're not going to rely on him all the time. Carlo Ancelotti took it on the chin. He says, maybe I didn't explain the back three. I didn't explain the plan well enough to the players. He's being a little bit coy. I think some of the players, I don't think their head was quite right. I don't know if you can continue with this back three because I don't know if you have, you need bodies to do that because people will get injured and suspended. It is a solution to find the balance. And by the way, I don't know if you saw Jude Bellingham getting so angry on the pitch when Vinicius is crossing the ball. There's like 8 players between them, but the ball doesn't get to Bellingham and he throws a strop.
He has one of those little tantrums, doesn't he?
Yeah, not a good look. Again, Ancelotti goes out and defends Bellingham. Oh, he's a winner, blah, blah, blah. It's just getting pretty tiring. Bellingham playing on the right, maybe wasn't happy about that. I don't know.
I think it was a case of Ancelotti maybe putting a cap on it, and he is the great diplomat, and he doesn't cause a fuss there. But I think it was probably looking at the way they defended at the weekend and the chances that Celta had, that there were huge gaps in the centre. Then I think it was probably a one-off experiment. I've not known him to play a back 3 in his time at Real Madrid, and I don't think I probably will do again.
Courtois made 2 save of the season contenders. That is why they have 3 points. A late John Stones header gives Manchester City a 2-1 win away to Wolves. Rob, should the goal have stood? And for those who don't remember this, it was Bernardo Silva, let's say, interfering, hanging out with Jose Sa. Or is it a case, as your buddy Gary O'Neill suggests, of big team bias?
It's great, isn't it, that Gary O'Neill is the man and Wolves are the club that wanted VAR to be disbanded and have a vote in the summer. Yet this week he was hoping that VAR may overturn a goal that none of the Wolves players were disputing.
Well, no, the goal was disallowed on the pitch, apparently.
Yeah. It was. Oh, was it disallowed on the pitch? Was it?
The flag went. I'm assuming that's why it went to VAR.
But it's the great irony in that he dived out of the way. He wasn't in the view of the goalkeeper. He's probably the smallest player of the Manchester City team, and it was a mass clutching of straws. And Gary O'Neill, the Wolves fans have bought into him, but they're bottom of the league at the moment, and he does like to deflect the blame somewhere. And you say this big team, this subconscious big team bias, which is a new one to say that my team weren't really good enough.
I don't know. I think Wolves actually played relatively well. They could have been 2-0 up if Semedo had put the goal away. I think it's a worry that City now in 4 of the last 7 games have gone a goal down. But on the goal itself, I mean, first of all, you should have done a better job protecting the ball. You had Gonzalo Guedes up the other end of the pitch. Just take the ball into the corner rather than trying to remind people that you were once a Ricardo Quaresma wannabe. But when Bernardo Silva is next to the keeper, he can't be offside because it's a corner kick.
He can't be offside from a corner. And then they're saying that the keeper pushed him, but when the goalkeeper moved him out of the way, that's when the corner was in place. He can't be offside from the corner. So he wasn't offside at that point.
Exactly. He only becomes offside when Stones hits the ball, and by that point, he's gone.
And again, as a former keeper, I would always say that if they're in your periphery, then it should be awarded to the goalkeeper. But he literally dived out of the way so the keeper could see the ball. Paris Saint-Germain beat Strasbourg 4-2 as Luis Enrique's team rests half a dozen starters. Gab, I guess that is the luxury that they have in Ligue 1.
They do, and they can play the kids. This time it was Mayulu. They've played 4 guys 19 or younger. Even 5 guys 19 or younger this season have started a game for them. 4 of them homegrown, the other one being Desiree Doué. Mayulu scored a great goal. Bradley Barcola coming up big again. I love my speedy Barcola. Yes, this is the luxury that you have. You need to be a little bit careful because also sometimes it can cost you points, and they are level top of the table. It's not like they're running away with it. Tottenham Hotspur beat West Ham 4-1. Rob, many are putting it down to Ange's Pop Sar for James Maddison switch at halftime. Is Ange ball changing?
Well, it's maybe a new variation of handball and Ange ball, and everybody's putting it down. I didn't see the whole of the game. I just saw the highlights, but it did look like they were less pedestrian. The thing with Maddison, he just played this lovely football and he's stylish, but I think by bringing on Pape Sarr, it freed up the other players, and certainly making a change like that changed the direction of the game.
And they were also struggling in transition a lot of the time. And West Ham aren't good, and they weren't good.
Yeah.
But I thought it was a game where you need Maddison at that point. Kulusevski's running rampant. Son's running rampant. Just square it away in front of the back four. So you got that protection and transition, and you'll destroy them. And they did.
Maybe coaching genius. Paulo Fonseca is true to his word. He drops Rafael Leao. They go down to 10 men for more than an hour and still beat Udinese.
Yeah, look, I'm Team Paulo on this one. I mean, I think after all the nonsense with the penalties, and he would have dropped Theo Hernandez too if Theo hadn't been suspended for this game. He did the right thing. He was true to his word. Milan looked united. I think they were a little bit unlucky. Reinders sending off, similar situation to the Saliba red card. And so they hung in there and won. And they're showing real unity and team spirit. This is becoming his team. He's stamping his authority. He will not go quietly. So well done him. Bayer Leverkusen beat Eintracht Frankfurt 2-1. But Rob, the visitors are furious not to get that late penalty when Jonathan Tah appeared to imbalance Hugo Ekitike.
certainly got in the way of him and wrapped his body around his body as well, and made a remarkable goal line recovery after a scramble between the two of them. Do you know what? I think it would have been an injustice if the penalty had been given. It was one of those, I was commentating on the game, and it was so late in the game that the match director didn't focus on it too much, but I understand afterwards the furore from Frankfurt that we could have had it, and they're hanging their coat on that one as well. But it wasn't the most important bit of the game.
But Leverkusen mullered them during the game, right?
Yeah, they did. It wasn't a classic Leverkusen performance. They missed a penalty early in the game. Victor Boniface missed the penalty trap, made a good save as well. They scored
and then
later
got into
on.
a car accident.
He did, and then the very next morning, 7 o'clock in the morning, gets into a horrific car accident, has written off his €170,000 car. Napoli stayed top of Serie A by beating Empoli 1-0, but Gab, this was far from convincing.
No, it was a really bad performance, and credit to Antonio Conte. Look, it's important to have the 3 points at the top of the table, but he came out and he said, look, anybody has a headache, they don't quite feel right, just tell me. I'll play somebody else. Lukaku was awful in this game. Billy Gilmore, he had to fill in for Stanislav Lobotka. He had a really, really hard time. People are giving him a hard time. It was his first start for Napoli in Serie A. I think we can let them slide. He needs to grow, but he needs to grow into the position. And finally, that penalty, Tino and Jordan, former Chelsea star Tino and Jordan, on Politano, very, very generous.
A lot of 1-0s, weren't there, in Serie A this weekend?
Aston Villa went away to Fulham 3-1 to go joint third in the table. Rob, European football was supposed to slow them down this year, but Unai Emery has them flying.
I think it shows what a great manager is and what an incredible job that he's done. I think it's 2 years ago to the week that Steven Gerrard left and Unai Emery came in, and they said, well, what's he going to do? The people in this country weren't sure of his reputation after Arsenal, but he's just a great coach. And the thing about them, they're bringing players through. And again, to play in Europe, you have to have a good squad. I think Europe's just going to be an adventure for them, but they could be on the slide this season when it comes to the Premier League. And, you keep looking, and if they're going to be top 3 or top 4, they'd be delighted again, wouldn't they?
Just disappointed John Duran didn't score.
Maybe in midweek. Juventus need a late-on goal to beat Lazio, who play in more than an hour, a man down after Romagnoli's red card. Gab, things weren't supposed to be different under Thiago Motta.
No, weren't things supposed to be. They were supposed to be different.
I slipped, yeah.
And they are different. And people look at this, it's only 1-0 and they played rubbish. Yeah, but it's completely different. There's kids out there. The fullbacks were Savona and Cabal in this game. Look, especially in Serie A, when a team goes down to 10 men, they go into lockdown mode. Mm-hmm. You know this. Every team in the world does the drill, even back in the day when, you play like 4 defenders and a goalkeeper against a full team on the other side, and you just never concede, right? Mm-hmm. And that's kind of what Lazio did, and they did it really, really well. And because they don't, right now, Colt Miners is out, Nico is out, Federico Conceição was suspended. They don't necessarily have the guys to do the one-on-one thing. They still took a bunch of shots on goal. They didn't create a lot of clear chances. Ultimately, they needed the own goal to win. But it's okay. It's a process.
Is it just chance that every top game in Serie A finished 1-0 this weekend?
Yes, it's just chance. Stop it. Danny Welbeck scores the only goal as Newcastle fall at home to Brighton. Rob, I kind of feel like they're not really kicking on this year.
See what you did there, because that's the only 1-0 in the Premier League this weekend as well.
Yeah,
Brighton
exactly.
There you see, it was segging in there. Welbeck did well. I think I look at Danny Welbeck, and he was a great player, maybe like Rashford back in the day, and then in that kind of middle part of his career.
Well, when he went to Arsenal?
Yeah, but then he kind of disappeared, didn't he? And then you look at him now, and he's seen as this great senior statesman, and older than the coach, isn't he? Herzl is doing a fantastic job there. Welbeck went off, he scored the goal, he is their talisman there at the moment, and he stretched it off, and people were worried, but I believe on his social media, he said that he's going to be back soon. But it's a great story down there, but problems for Newcastle, isn't it?
Yeah, why?
I don't know. Things just seem to have gone a little bit stale up there. I don't really know what's going on. They say that Eddie Howe wasn't contacted by England, but were Eddie Howe's people's contacted by England? Maybe not the manager himself.
I think there would have been a release clause to be paid, which is a big part of the reason why.
An awful lot of money, wouldn't it? Yeah. Atletico Madrid come from behind to beat Leganes 3-1. Gab, do you want to celebrate the only living Solot incapacity? I see what you've done there. Solot captivity. I can't get that out.
The only living Sorloth in captivity. Yes, I will.
Sorloth.
He scores 2 goals. He could have had a hat trick. I think in the second half, when Atletico Madrid played much better, it coincided with them playing better. Giuliano Simeone, by the way, shout out to him, coming off the bench, setting up one of the goals. It's nice to see Diego Simeone's other Cholito do well. I was making this point in response to Jan August Hjortoft, right? I don't think there's another country in the history of the world. I'm going to put this out there to anybody who knows that has 3 center forwards, 1.90 meters or taller, who are as good as a trio of Erling Braut Haaland, Alexander Sorloth, and Jürgen Strand Larsen from Wolves. I don't think there's. Can you think of? No, you can't.
It is the land of the giants, isn't it?
I
just think about Sorloth and Sloth there. I'm still back on that one.
I know.
It's a big game for him, though, because Omarodian, who they did have on their books that almost went to Chelsea.
Who's also really big.
Yeah, who's also really big as well. He scored 4 goals for the under-21s, and he's one of the leading scorers in Portugal with Porto this season. So there was a lot of pressure on Sorloth this week. A lot of questions being asked. So I think he's answered the questions there, hasn't he?
Omarodian, who was supposed to go to Chelsea, then didn't come for medical reasons. Funny, that one.
Is that right?
Marseille beat Montpellier on the road 5-0. Rob, clearly my boy Roberto De Zerbi is a genius. But I want to ask you about Mason Greenwood. He scored again. Reportedly, he wants a meeting with Thomas Tuchel to see if he has an England future. If he doesn't, apparently he's ready to switch his allegiance to Jamaica.
Yeah, I saw there were quotes from a person close to Mason Greenwood. So obviously his people are working hard. I would imagine that if Thomas Tuchel has a list of priorities and a bullet list when he starts his job on the 1st of January on some kind of whiteboard when he goes into the FA headquarters, I don't think Mason Greenwood and giving him a call and persuading him to play for England over Jamaica is going to be at the top of his list.
I don't think he needs to persuade him. I think it's more Mason Greenwood just saying, dude,
yeah,
what's happened happened. Yeah. I'm still here.
Yeah.
Will you consider calling me? Unlike Gareth Southgate and unlike Carsley, or has that ship sailed? Because if that ship has sailed, I want to play international football, and I'll do it with Jamaica.
Still a young. I mean, 5 goals in 3 matches now. He won only the 1 cap when he got himself into a little bit of hot water as well when he was called up for England. Yeah,
with Phil Foden.
Apparently so. Yeah, it goes back there. But the thing is, he doesn't need somebody to do his talking, to drop quotes into the media, does he? If you're scoring goals in France and you're up at the top of the scoring charts, Tuchel is an educated footballing man. He is going to take notice of that, isn't he?
I do think it's a big call because, so it's not like the FA said you're never playing for England.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, we know what happened if you don't Google it.
Yeah.
Southgate never shut the door, but also never called him. I think at some point you are entitled to go and ask, where do I stand? Because I would have no issue if England says, I'm sorry, because of what happened and the way it ended and the fact that we've never actually had clarity, you can't represent our country. I'm okay with that if you want to make an ethical stand, but you need to communicate it to him. I think he deserves to have that communicated to him.
Absolutely.
So that he can make his own decision.
Is that the point yet, though, where it's a pick me or lose me kind of situation, which is just reading the quotes? That's what it seems to be at the moment.
I think we're getting there. And I think the reality, though, is he needs to do this because, like you said, he's not going to be Tuchel's first priority when he takes over. England have a ton of striker options or more winger options, but that's essentially what he plays now. So Tuchel's not going to say, oh, I need to have a Greenwood headache and a public media conversation as soon as I take over, maybe down the road. So I think now is actually the time for him to go and do that. And yeah, get on the phone with Tuchel and say, and then I think what Tuchel would say is he'd go to the FA and say, hey, FA, can I call this guy or not? I wasn't here. I'm not involved in this. And I hope the FA say, we'll make the decision one way or the other. And it shouldn't be left down to Tuchel.
Can he do that, though, if he doesn't start the job until January the 1st?
Can he answer a phone call? Yes,
can he make a phone call to the FA and actually, contractually kind of look at that? But maybe February, March, they'll have a look at that. Keep scoring goals, Mason. Well, this was back on Friday, but a late Guirassy goal gave Borussia Dortmund a 2-1 win over St. Pauli. Gab, is this a sign of progress?
Well, it's better than their last game against a hipster club from the north of Germany when they lost to Union Berlin. But no, this is not good. You're at home. They nearly conceded the equalizer to St. Pauli late on. In fact, they were winning 1-0. St. Pauli equalized, and then Guirassy scored. And then they nearly conceded another one. this is a team that feels it's like it's made of papier-mâché, and they're going to collapse at any minute. That's not a good look. It's not a good situation. Nouri Sahin hasn't been in charge that long, but I expected him to be further along the curve. So I think there's some big games coming up for him. Alphonso Davies is a free agent in June, and in less than 75 days, he can commit to any club for next year. Rob, for the longest time, he was linked to Real Madrid, assuming he doesn't extend his buying contract, which, by the way, I think there's still the possibility that he can sign an extension. Now there's talk of Manchester United. If Fonzie were on the phone to you and says, Rob, what should I do? United or Real Madrid? Do I want to play a walk-on part in the war, or do I want to play a lead role in a cage?
Well, I like that.
Oh, I thought you might.
Very good.
We're dating ourselves here.
Actually, I just said, just remind me what my percentage is of any deal. If I was actually, where do I get if he's an agent? I think Real Madrid have less of a need for him now. Mendy notably has signed a new longer-term contract. They're giving more game time to Fran Garcia on the left-hand side as well. And I don't think left-back is a position that Real Madrid are necessarily desperate to sign somebody, or he would be a major upgrade. I think they've got a problem on the right side of defence with the injury to Carvajal. He's going to be out for this season, whether he comes back at the age of 34. I would imagine that Real Madrid, if they've got some cash in the attic, are going to be spending on a right back, and maybe one that's doing well at international level, and say at a club of equal standing at maybe Liverpool or somewhere like that. And if Manchester United are interested, then Manchester United are desperate for an international class player like Davies. So if I was directing him, I'd probably say you'd probably stand a better chance of making the Manchester United team than the Real Madrid team at the moment.
Luke Shaw thanks you for your support and your great... No, joking aside.
Every team needs two in every position, Gab.
No, but you could look at this and say, oh, Shaw and Malacia, they already have two left backs. The reality is Malacia, the poor guy, missing virtually all of last season, not being particularly good when he was fit before that. Luke Shaw, I think, is a pathological case at this stage. And Luke Shaw, by the way, is one of those guys who went from being very young to being very old all of a sudden. I think if you have a shot at Davies, if you can sell Davies on him, the problem is, Alphonso Davies, if I'm his agent, I'm going to want to say, okay, so who's managing the club next year? Is Ten Hag staying? And then you got to give a straight answer. And if your answer is, well, we'll see how Eric does, then maybe you think about it a little bit more.
What did you say, 75 days? So Ten Hag might have 75 days left, do you think?
Are you going to proceed with your fairy tales and lies?
And noise. Remember when the Russian sanctions over Ukraine forced Roman Abramovich to sell Chelsea to Todd Boehly and his friends? Of course you do, Gab. But where did the money actually go? Do you know?
I do. This is an incredible story. And I'm kind of surprised more people outside the world of sport don't take an interest in this. So he sells the club for, was it $2 billion, more than $2.5 billion, right? And because he's sanctioned. He works out a deal with the government, says okay, you can't have this money. It has to go into a fund. And that fund has to go and help victims of the war in Ukraine. Now, incredibly poorly worded, because he agrees to this and pays the money into an account, but that money hasn't gone anywhere because they can't agree on what victims of the war in Ukraine actually means. Does it mean going to help Ukrainians in Ukraine, or in supposedly this is what Abramovich's camp says, no, I want to help all victims of the war in Ukraine, including maybe Russian speakers in the east of the country who've been displaced or bombed, blah, blah, blah. There's a war going on. I don't want to get into the merits of it. I don't understand. I would love to find the Muppet who signed off on this deal, because the reality is this money is sitting there. Only good thing is it's gaining interest, and it still hasn't been allocated. Rob, it's been what? More than 2 years. It's been 2.5.
Somebody's keeping an eye on it, and it's ring fenced, and it's somewhere. I mean, somebody.
Yeah, there's a guy like Penfold, something like that, who's in charge of it. His hands are tied. He can't do anything, and the money just sits there. This is a lot of money. This is literally $2.5 billion.
Might be 3 with the interest rates.
Oh, yeah, but soon it's going to be $3 billion. I think, and you know what? Some people are even suggesting, when the sanctions are lifted, some people are even suggesting the possibility that Abramovich might get the money back. which would be even more grotesque given the situation, given the deal that they made. I don't think that's going to happen, but come on. Seriously.
Wow.
Leipzig win 2-0 away to Mainz and stay level on points with Bayern at the top of the Bundesliga. Rob, perhaps unsurprisingly, Mainz fans had some pretty mean things to say about their old favorite, Jurgen Klopp.
Yeah, it's interesting with Jurgen Klopp. What was the banner in the stadium? Have you forgotten everything we gave you? A famous Klopp quote. There are many famous Klopp quotes out there as well. And he's gone from being the most popular man in European football to the man that's going to be getting stick wherever he goes now. And again, the root of all evil, it seems, is some kind of soft drink. We keep talking about these things, don't we?
I mean, this really, again, I know we talked about this at length. In German football, I understand the concept of German football, going to work for the Red Bull organization, especially when you've been seen and have said, you've been the paladin of a certain type of grassroots football and the pyramid and all this stuff and the sanctity, this and that. This is an enormous heel turn. And I genuinely don't know why he did this, because we've even had reports that Borussia Dortmund were willing to say, hey, you can come back with any title you want. You can coach, you can be director of football, you can be CEO when Hans-Joachim Watzke leave. He had so many options. And this going to Red Bull with everything that they stand for, again, within the context, I know some people are fine with them and what they've done, but within the context of German football, they still are very much pariahs. It's just such a curious choice. Unless Klopp unless it's Agent Jurgen who's going to destroy them from the inside. I don't think so. I don't know.
And I just wonder how visual he's going to be in this. Obviously, he's going around the world working behind the scenes at all of the clubs and talking to the people are pulling the strings. But is he going to be seen out there? Is he going to be seen at games sitting in the director's box, slab-having people?
I mean, it's hard for Klopp not to be visible and seen because he's so tall.
It's in his nature, isn't it? But it's in his nature to be out there.
You want if you're Red Bull, you want him out there to represent you. Mm-hmm. At the same time, I don't know. I genuinely wonder if he regrets it. Again, it doesn't make him a bad guy, but I can see why people are really questioning his decision.
Hammarby faced Djurgården in the Stockholm derby. How did it finish, Gab?
Well, it didn't finish.
Because,
really? I think Hammarby were 2-0 up, and then there was a lot of pyro. At some point, this is kind of stupid, I think, from the police. No disrespect, police. They said, okay, guys, too much pyro. All the fans, all of you guys go home so we can finish the game. Now, if you're a pyro guy in the stands, are they going to tell you? And the cops just say, everybody, please clear out in an orderly fashion. Are you going to leave? No, of course not. Or at least 99.
What is a pyro? Why do you take a pyro into a stadium?
Because it's part of the spectacle.
Now, I did notice in Germany, there was a big meeting last week, it's been serious now, between the German FA and the government as well. And they've banned fireworks, pyros, all that kind of stuff in the stadium, signed dying, said it's not going to be coming back in the near future as well. So it is we don't have it in the UK, and they just wear masks in the Spanish league. Why are you wearing a mask? Well, you need to look yourself in the mirror. But I just can't understand. I mean, it's great to look at, to see the pyros, but imagine if you paid $100 for a ticket and you got some guy with a sparkler in front of you. I don't get it.
I don't think so. I think the reason that's being banned is more on safety concerns.
Yeah.
There's a whole debate to be had about that. I just think the police think that you're at a football match and you can go through your loudspeaker, Swedish policeman says yeah, everybody now, please leave the stand. Of course, these guys aren't going to leave. So as a result, they
take your fireworks with you.
Yeah, they abandon the game. And then they're going to be playing today behind closed doors, as we record this on a Monday. They're going to play the last 15 minutes. How hilarious would it be if those guys showed up outside the ground with their pyro? No,
that'd be safer, wouldn't it?
Yeah. I do not want to encourage civil disobedience. No, look, I think you need to have rules. You need to enforce those rules. I think there is a space for safe pyro in football if it's done properly.
I think there is, but it's down on the field by an expert.
Oh, no. You want the corporate crap with the plastic flags?
Yeah.
The stupid at Paris Saint-Germain, they have those stupid things.
But pyros, for me, have no place in a football stadium.
I don't know.
Sorry, Gab.
All right. We disagree on that one, but obviously safety and public order have to come first.
Very good.
Neymar has been included in the El Hilal team squad to face Al Ain in the Asian Champions League. They play in a few hours here on Monday. Rob, he turns 33 in February. He's played 387 minutes for El Hilal in all competitions. And we last saw him more than a year ago.
33-year-old, hasn't played in a year, playing in a league that isn't the most demanding. I mean, and as well, I noticed you say in the squad, which suggests that he's not going to be in the starting 11.
I don't think he's going to start after not playing in more than a year.
Well, maybe it's in his contract. Can you imagine him wanting to sit on the bench and come on as an impact sub? Go on, give you the last 10 minutes if you can change the course of the game. There are some players that have gone out there. I commentated on Ronaldo last week, playing for Portugal, and he's still fit and he's fresh, and he looked like he deserved his place in the team. And I noticed Laporte was playing for Spain, and he's playing out in Saudi as well. But Neymar,
the poor man has been injured, to be fair. But it's interesting because I saw clips from, he did some YouTube live thing with some Brazilian YouTuber, and he's crying. He's talking about how badly he wants to play. I think he's got a view towards the 2026 World Cup. The big rumor, you ready for this?
Oh, go on.
Barcelona reunion. He's got a deal through the end of the season in Saudi, although there is a club option that they can extend it by a year. But the big rumor is, what if he comes to MLS and joins forces with Lionel Messi and Luis Suarez, and we reform the MSN?
The Dream Team.
The Dream Team. How cool would that be? That's like the third iteration of the Dream Team.
Oh, my goodness. What would the ticket prices be for that?
In
time for the FIFA World Cup, maybe? Oh, club.
Of course.
Yeah.
Oh, in time for the Club World Cup.
Because Miami are in that now, aren't they?
Yes, and in fact, let's digress to Miami because I forgot to put that in the quick hits. So the Club World Cup next summer, just to give some background on this, each confederation stipulates its own guidelines for how to qualify. CONCACAF has its guidelines that it submits to the Club World Cup. And you assumed, and most people assumed, it would be the MLS champion from this season, the season going into the Club World Cup. Instead, they decided, no, it's going to be the team that wins the Supporters' Shield, which is the regulars, because they have playoffs in MLS, right?
Yep.
And that team happens to be Miami, which happens to be the team that
has Messi and Suarez and maybe Neymar by then.
Yeah, and mostly Messi. Are you okay with this? Because the accusation's pretty obvious, but we can't take a chance on Miami not winning the MLS Cup. And then instead of, what happens if instead of Lionel Messi in the Club World Cup, which I'm trying to sell around the world, I get stuck with the Columbus Crew and No Name and Fulio in the team. Instead, I want, no disrespect, Columbus Crew.
Yeah.
Are you okay with that?
And isn't it Seattle as well, who just happens to have one of the largest fan bases over there as well in the States? And it's an unpopular competition. And again, the teams that have been invited from Europe, are they not historical as well, based on historical form? Man City know they're going out there, and City are playing in that. And then I think, don't they have like about 10 days break? And then City start their US tour of the United States.
Don't pick on UEFA here. No, the teams in Europe all qualified either by winning the Champions League in the previous 4 years or by having the highest, the higher UEFA coefficients, and there's a maximum of 2 teams per country. CONCACAF, obviously smaller. You're not going to invite Joe Public from Trinidad, and yes, that is really the name of a team. But obviously the process is going to be different. It's just a lot of people said, host nation, champions of the host nation, fine, but not Supporters' Shield winners. Supporters' Shield just means you got the most points in the regular season. It's a bit...
They'd be saying, but Gab, we want to know who we're selling the tickets to. This thing is only a few months ahead. We need to, when does the MLS season actually finish? We don't have enough time to... Oh, it's not that long, is it already? Yeah, I see what you mean.
Playoffs are starting next week.
Exactly. You get my point.
It's easier to sell with Messi.
Exactly, yes. That is the underlying... Right. LVMH, you had to explain who that was. The luxury brand owned by France's richest man are teaming up with Red Bull to buy a majority stake in Paris FC. Sorry. Gab, will we finally see a legitimate local derby in the French capital again?
Okay, so first of all, LVMH, for those who don't know. And I think
I hadn't a clue who that was.
Both you or I, as you may have figured, unlike my regular co-host, not really big in the luxury brand world, but it comprises Louis Vuitton, Moet, Moët Chandon, the Champagne, Hennessy, Christian Dior, Stella McCartney, Bulgari, who make the fancy watches at the hotel.
You're not doing this from memory.
Tiffany,
I can point out you're reading it. He's not doing this from memory.
I'm looking at the Wikipedia page, right?
He's just looking at his suitcase now, and he's...
Tag Heuer, the big tacky watches.
Although
not as big and tacky as the Hublot watches. which I shouldn't say because I think they sponsor Jules. But anyway, I'm happy with my Canada I watch. All right, now that we've dropped enough brands, by the way, and you guys want to sponsor us, you know where to find us. Anyway, they're owned by this guy named Bernard Arnault, who's the richest man in France. He's a legit billionaire many times over. He's taken over Paris FC together with Red Bull. He's in the process of taking over. I think this is actually exciting and could move the needle. Can you make another super team in Paris, right? Can Paris sustain it in terms of population, in terms of the fact that it's Paris, the catchment area for all the young talent? Mm-hmm. I think this is what has some people excited and maybe what has some Paris Saint-Germain fans, like the guy who normally sits in your place, maybe a little bit concerned. And you know what? It's a long way to go, but that would be good for football, right?
Yeah, I was trying to find the Paris Saint-Germain goals this weekend, and I found every other goal from the German league, the Italian league, that it is the most over-marketed and underdeveloped league in Europe. You think about all of you go to Madrid, you got Atletico and you got Real, okay, you got Getafe, you got Leganes. Was 8-9 teams in London that are in and around the Premier League as well. You go to the city of Liverpool, you got Liverpool and Everton. You go to Manchester, the City and United. Surely a capital city like that with, a great national team and great players that are playing all over Europe should be able to house more than one top-level team in Ligue 1, shouldn't it? It needs to, at least. It needs that rivalry for marketing purposes.
Well, Paris FC in the women's game already, of course, they were in the Champions League last year. I don't think this year they went through to the next stage, but they're already there. It's interesting because obviously there's two Paris teams in the second division, the other one being Red Star, but they're in 7-7-7 group hell, so I don't know where they're going. I think they're close to relegation. But Paris FC, they're second in the second division, so there's a really good chance they're going to come up. They don't get big crowds. In fact, they're one of those teams that gives their tickets away and tries to make it up with sponsorship, which is a nice idea. Maybe it's even economically viable. However, it's not exactly what investors want to hear. They'd rather you pay to sit in seats, right? The fun thing about them is they were founded in 1969. I'd completely forgotten this until I looked it up. And then a year after that, they formed with a team called Saint-Germain, and they became Paris Saint-Germain. And then 2 years later, they split off again and became Paris FC.
Oh, you're right in the narrative here, aren't you? For when they play each other in Ligue 1 and they're selling those TV rights around the world, this is what French football needs.
They're the ultimate. It's the ultimate splitters. It's a story about love and passion, unrequited, and they break up and they get together.
This sounds like a film script.
It's pretty cool.
I think Jules could get a part in it, couldn't he? You could see him. Who would he play?
Oh my God, Jules would be all over this.
Yeah.
So
he might be the richest man who's buying the other team, though, rather than Paris Saint-Germain. So.
I think Jules could play Monsieur Arnault. Yeah, he could play Bernard Arnault. Yeah. I think he's made for it. Yep. You've given us a phenomenal idea there. Rob, I know you're way into your energy drinks and your YouTube battle. So what do you make of Prime? Of course, the drink founded by former enemies, now friends, Logan Paul and KSI, threatening to sue Lionel Messi's fledgling energy drink, Mass Plus.
Do you know, I had to do research on this one because all of those words were foreign to me. I mean, your kids are younger than mine. My lad just drinks pure water. And I believe these energy drinks they're like trinkets, the things that kids always wanted for Christmas, didn't they? That they get, and it's a must-have because you've got it because the kid wants it there.
It was more a couple of years ago. But they're basically saying that, hey, guys, the packaging looks the same. We've got the fluorescent colors and stuff like that.
Should kids be drinking this stuff anyway? If you're a healthy teenage kid, should you be drinking stuff? But that's where they're going. If you're talking about Logan Paul and KSI, how 2024 is this that you have people like that marketing, selling drinks out there, and now you went, okay, well, we're going to do that. We're going to have Lionel Messi do that as well. Do we actually believe that Lionel might kind of take a swig of this?
Messi drinks his own. Okay, can we, before the Messi maniacs attack us, I'm pretty sure Lionel Messi did not design the Mass Plus bottle, so I don't think he's infringing.
Yeah, and I looked at it. It said things like vitamins, electrolytes, and antioxidants. So I'm up for that kind of stuff.
There you go.
I may well have what that sounds pretty healthy.
It's good for you. Drink more of it.
It comes down to the packaging, though. Isn't that the argument at the moment? The packaging.
Yes, about the packaging.
Yeah. Gab, the Court of Arbitration for Sport rejected a Barcelona appeal and found in favour of UEFA last week. Educate me. What's all this about?
Okay, so basically, You remember when when Barcelona were in a terrible financial situation, Laporta pulled his famous levers.
Still there.
What? He sold future income. He sold Barca Studios and other assets. He raised a total of 850 million in cash, right? And by selling this stuff. And he booked 200 million of it immediately in Barcelona's accounts. UEFA are saying you can't do that because if you're going to take money now for future income, you have to spread it out. You have to spread that revenue out over the life of the deal. You can't just go and put 200, say, oh, we've got 200 million in profit right now. Barcelona appealed it. They appealed it first to UEFA's appeals body, who said no, and then they appealed it further to Court of Arbitration for Sport. It doesn't mean they're going to fail financial fair play in the here and now, but it does mean that you can't do this. And this becomes relevant for certain clubs like Lyon, who of course sold the women's team, and for Chelsea as well with the hotel sales. In the sense that when you've got other assets and you sell them, they're basically deciding how you can book them and how you can put them. You can't just necessarily book them all straight away. It's not like selling a left back, basically.
I was going to say the most important person at a football club these days is no longer the left back or the right back or the manager. It's the guy with a degree from Harvard or Yale, isn't it, that understands economics and is one step ahead of UEFA or FIFA or the Premier League or La Liga as well to shuffle these things around to then get them to have to close the loophole.
It's a CFO. It's like a capologist in the NFL. Same concept. Right, that brings us to an end. Rob, thank you so much for filling, I was going to say Jules' big shoes, but Jules has little teeny tiny feet, as you know. Jules and I will be back on Thursday because it's a Champions League week. How about that? Until then, love the game, love your neighbor, love yourself.